Welcome back to Feature Fanatics, where we talk about all the movies that have us obsessed, excited, and inspired. I'm Gal, and today is another director spotlight, where we're talking about a filmmaker who crazy cannot even begin to describe his movies. I just finished Dogtooth right before we recorded this, and that was also incredibly weird. And joining us today are two returning guests to the podcast. We got, first of all, Kristin from Miss Filmingo and the M&K Productions podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing excellent. I am so excited to talk about today's topic, and I am so happy to be here. It's good to be back.
Of course. And it's been a while, almost a year, I would say, since you were on to talk some Paul Rudd movies.
Yeah, that was such a fun episode. I can't believe
that was great.
it.
We
It
had
was
a lot
almost
of
a
laughs
year
with that
ago.
one. Always great when we talk comedies. And today we'll be talking, in a weird way, comedies in their own right. And also joining us is Julie from Juice Real Reviews on Instagram. How are you today?
I am great. Thanks for having me on. I'm so excited. I love Yorgos for the most part. I love him. So I'm so excited to talk about this today and just dive into all these weird movies.
Yeah, we have some, because you teased me about like some of your thoughts, but we haven't actually really gone over in depth like what we think about each movie. So we'll be finding out a lot about that as you are in this recording. So we're going to be going over some of his movies. In this episode, we'll be going over specifically his 4 English language films, starting with The Lobster. But I know he does have some Greek films before that, including Dogtooth. So before we start, what is it that we love about Yorgos Lanthimos to open our episode?
I love how bizarre, and I kind of said this in my recent review of Poor Things. He's a very daring director who's not afraid to break grounds, telling certain things in unique ways that are often can be stylish and can be controversial, I think, to me. And just the way he looks at certain topics, like what he looks at in The Lobster and most recently Poor Things. And I just like the way he takes his art into ways that now he's kind of like considered himself like an auteur. When you watch his films, you can pick up you're watching a Yorgos film, because I can totally see that now after comparing it from what I saw in The Favorite and then seeing how it translates more in Poor Things.
Yeah. I love him because I feel like he uses this like absurd lens to depict how weird we are as a society. So I feel like that's just like overall the deeper you go into his filmography, the weirder it is. I feel like the most recent stuff is the most accessible, and I feel like the more production he gets, he's going to be big going forward, let's just say.
I mean, given the budget that has grown dramatically from what he's done with The Lobster, it's been kind of crazy what he's been able to get with the star power and the production's design and costume work. It's kind of crazy what he's been able to get.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, so Yorgos Lanthimos, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he's the most famous director now to have broken out from Greece. I don't know if there's a lot of other big Greek filmmakers, but his movies are incredibly weird, and some of them may make you puke. But like they're filled with, at times disgusting violence, at times, like you said, intriguing social commentary, really dark, unexpected, outrageous humor. Even though his movies take such big swings, and I don't think he minds like alienating people who don't have a great stomach. It seems like the awards guilds took on his style right away. Like we said, Dogtooth was nominated for the Oscar for Best Foreign Language or now International Feature Film, and then The Lobster was nominated for Best Original Screenplay, and then The Favorite was nominated that year for a leading 10 Oscar nominations. And now Poor Things is one of the most talked about movies of the year, and I would be surprised if it was nominated for less than 10, right, to be honest. So yeah, it seems like he's one of those guys where even if his style of humor is different, or you kind of need to, I don't want to say suspend disbelief, but definitely like put on a certain, like glasses into his different lens of like the world. You have to know what you're getting into,
Yeah.
or else to be like, oh, what the hell is this movie on about?
Yeah.
But definitely he challenges his audiences in a way that a lot of them have embraced, and I think I've 3 of them I've watched in theaters now, so definitely he gives off a vibe of like you never know what to expect from the next scene of his movies,
Yeah.
which is something that I love whenever we see that in movies now. Even like similarly in stuff like Saltburn or like Beau is Afraid Dream Scenario, where kind of every scene is new and different and out there. And so I love that Yorgos continuously does that, even when he's making a biopic, for example, or an adaptation.
Yeah. May I ask too, since you've seen 3 of his adaptation in theaters, what have you seen and what was your favorite?
Ooh, what do you mean? Like, which have I?
Like
Which did I
of the
see in
films that you
theaters?
saw, which you said you saw 3 of his films in theaters. Which one was your favorite, and which ones you saw in theaters?
We'll get into that at the end in terms of
Okay.
which is our best. But the experience was when I saw Poor Things and The Favorite, I'd say the theaters were pretty crowded. Killing of a Sacred Deer, there weren't a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
and I think me and my friend were like the only ones who liked it. But we'll get into that.
Yeah.
So let's get started with his first movie that we're talking about, which was also his first movie in English, which is The Lobster. And it stars Colin Farrell. Basically, we open in a society that we don't see too many glimpses of it, but we start out in this hotel in which single people are given uh, a certain amount of time, usually around 40 days, to find a significant other, or else
Right.
they get turned into an animal of their choice. And from there, chaos ensues. That's all I'll say. So when did you guys first watch this one? Did you watch it when it came out? Did you come back to it later?
I didn't have access to it when it first came out, so it took me a while to see it. Like I think I pretty much watched it after the old Oscar buzz it had because I just didn't get access to it. And that's unfortunate because at the time, he was like this was his English debut and I just didn't get access to it. And by then I was in college seeing so many other different films, never got the chance to see The Lobster. So I was late to the train and I thought it was fine, but it's definitely not my favorite of his, but it's at least a good introduction to what we now know him as a director.
Yeah. I definitely think The Lobster is kind of the merging of who he is now and who he started as, whereas he has this strange dialogue still going on between the characters, but I feel like it's almost accessible to people, and I think that's why it got that screenplay nomination, because it has a lot of interesting ideas and you can unpack so much from that film, mainly the things that we think what's the order of life, and what order do we have to do things in, and what pressures do we get under to be the normal person going in the normal path. And I think it really says a lot about that, and how much do we show of ourselves to who we're with, or who we're in a relationship with, and when do we reveal, if we ever do, who we actually are. And I think it comes up with probably the most, besides Poor Things, maybe probably the most to unpack is from The Lobster. And I've seen it twice. Most recently, like a month ago, I saw it again. And it's funny because the first time I watched it, I put it on with my boyfriend. He watched it. He's like, what is this? And I'm like,
Yeah, a lot of people said
but
that
then
when
I
I
put it on
watched
again,
when
and
I
he's like,
talked about it
you're
too.
watching The Lobster again? Why did you put this on? I was like, we're talking about Yorgos, okay? I'm putting it on again because he just didn't get it. But like, there's such amazing acting in it. Ben Wishaw's in it. If you didn't know who Ben Whishaw was
Yeah.
then, you know who he is now. John C. Reilly, one of my favorite actors of all time. Colin Farrell, I think it was like when he got into Yorgos, I think was when he kind of made his career more serious, and I think is when it like took off
Yes.
in that direction. So I think it has a lot with him, and it's like the first time you've probably seen Olivia Colman in anything too. So I think it has a lot
Right.
there, and I love it in a way.
It was
I
for
love
me.
it in a way.
Yeah.
In a way, I'm put off by it, but in a way, I love it because it has a lot of concepts that he's trying to convey. Like, hey, this is all ridiculous, but like, are
Yeah.
a lot of things we do ridiculous? Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it as. I really like that. But I also want to bring up the fact that I really love Colin's performance as well, because I remember at the time when I was like award season stuff, Colin was nominated for a Golden Globe, and I understand
Yes.
why, because he is the true star of that film, and he knocks it out of the park with his acting, I think, in that film.
Yeah.
So I remember he was nominated for the Golden Globe, and I saw this movie for the first time probably the day before that ceremony, because I saw that he was nominated under musical or comedy actor, and I was like, okay, I'll watch this movie. I heard good things a while ago, and it was on Amazon Prime. And I remember thinking this is a great movie, but it's such a feel bad movie. If you know what I mean? Like, I just left it feeling bad because, first of all, like John C. Reilly, he's hilarious, and he has the lisp and everything, and there's a lot of violence in this movie. Like, there's the whole like putting his hand in the toaster bit, which was
that's so extreme.
And we're not even in the worst parts, but definitely the ending is pretty gloomy. Like, anything, I can take any violence, but like in movies, but violence on animals and violence with like people's eyes is where I get like really like squirmy. And this movie checks off both of those boxes, like with flying colors too. Like there's
I was rewatching that scene.
There's a pretty explicit.
I was rewatching.
You don't see it, but the dog killing scene, and that shit just haunted me after this movie.
I was rewatching the film in honor of the podcast episode recording, and I forgot that completely happened. So I was just sitting there, just like, oh God, why is this just like, we don't see it, but I'm just like, it just makes me feel so uncomfortable. But you see the
aftermath, there's a whole shot of it, and I was just like,
no, yeah.
At least that woman got her comeuppance. That's all I'll say. That's the one medicine to that. But Colin Farrell, definitely funny that Julie, you're here, because our last time we were here, we were talking about Martin McDonagh, and Colin Farrell was in 3 of Martin McDonagh movies, so that's a great connective tissue. But he's really great here. Like, there's something so deadpan about the way he talks in this movie, whether he's like just like talking normally, or he's like shocked about something, or he's like desperately trying to either convince someone of something or get power over someone. Like, man, it's such a twisted performance, even if the character himself is possibly the least twisted one. But the movie's kind of split in 2 halves, which is everything in the hotel and everything in the outside world, where he meets Rachel Weisz, who's also revealed to be the narrator. And so a lot of interesting stuff happens in both. And like you said, Ben Whishaw is actually really good, and his character gets with, I think it's Jessica Barden, who's also really good in the show The End of the Fucking World, if you guys have seen that on Netflix.
I love that show. Yes.
So I had seen her in this first, and I was not surprised by what she was able to pull off in that show. And then Léa Seydoux is also a really good performance, because she is horrific. Like, I still can't trust her in movies sometimes, because I just think back at her in The Lobster. Like, she stands out so much in this movie because she's so dark, and where her character goes is so evil. Yeah.
Yes.
So anyone else have anything to add on this one?
No, but it's like, I like the acting more than the entire story. I will end on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think.
Go ahead.
I think, like, look, as to all of his movies, I understand why it would turn some people off. All of my friends who I've like recommended this movie to, who are like in my age range, like in their 20s, have liked it. But I feel like anyone who I would recommend to older than that or in my family would like absolutely despise it. Because again, I do think there's an argument to be had that like once you get towards the end and it's mostly just him and Rachel Weisz, it does slow down a bit there compared to some of the other stuff. But definitely the satire is interesting because I could totally imagine Yorgos just sitting around and thinking like, you know what, I hated when people were like getting mad at me or in disbelief at the fact that I was single back in the day or whatever. Which, by the way, I learned that he and Ariane Labed, who was a part in this movie, are like partners in real life. Which I think it was the woman that he got with at one point. She played the maid. Okay, no. So it's not the one that she got with, but she played the maid in the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I could totally see this like having like come from a very like societally layered place of like people looking down at others for being single or just in general like people making social bubbles or trying to impose social trends. Not that relationships are, they've been a thing forever, but just like trying to impose like social sanctions on others could definitely like speak beyond just this dystopian Irish hotel.
Yeah, and
Would you want to visit that hotel? Sorry, I
ahead.
didn't mean to cut
You're
anybody
good. You're good.
off. But would anybody want to visit that hotel or not?
Only in my nightmares.
No.
No. Yeah, it's a good nightmare visit.
I'll send someone there, you know?
It's like
That's what
that
thing.
or
But I don't know.
I feel like it's like no, go ahead. I was just gonna say I feel like it's that hotel and then the hotel and The Shining would kind of go hand in hand.
Oh, yeah, that's
True.
Good. I like that. True.
I just like how, you know, it reveals a lot between the two separate worlds, right? Because there's this world that's like single world and then this world that's like relationship, and how they're both extremely flawed because they're both like these opposite end of the spectrum where you don't really have free will. It's all rules. So I think like that balance that they don't have is like ultimately like nobody's happy. They're just following rules. And like, how much do we push ourselves in general to save face for other people, you know? And I just think the movie in itself isn't I wouldn't say I'm entertained, but I'm just so like, it makes me think a lot, you know, at the same time. And
Intrigued
I think
more.
very intrigued. And I think Yorgos uses that visual of these concepts, not saying like you really do have to let yourself go into it, because he's just using a visual of this world to make you feel it instead of like really taking it literally. I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's where you have to be with that movie before you get into it.
No, but absolutely one of the more disturbing movies I've seen. You know, everything from violence to a lot of sex to like suicide. It gets pretty awful, and I don't know if what was it, 14 or 15-year-old me was ready for that. Definitely, I was like, I had to set my mind for that once I saw the next movie. But before we move on, do we want to rate this 1 out of 10? Where do we stand on this movie?
Julie, you go first.
I'm at an 8.5 on this one. I feel like it's like definitely gotten better the second time I watched it because I already knew what to expect, and it made me think a lot deeper. I think it's one of those ones you can revisit. How many years later? 5, 6 years later, I've seen it, so I do enjoy it more than half of his movies. Definitely, it's right in the middle for me.
I feel like if you rewatch it, you'd be like readier for it than the first time for sure.
Yeah.
For me, I give it about a 7.5 out of 10 because I agree with rewatching it. I think the performances stand out, and this is just in the beginning of it. I believe the next film we're going to talk about left a more lasting impression in terms of watchability. This one, you know, was good, but it's like
Oh, you and
I
I
understand.
both.
Like, you know, it's just like, especially how dark it gets and the comedy elements. It's all good, but I just feel like his other work, I think, improves so much over time from what I've seen over the years.
Definitely. So I'm right in between you guys. I'm like 8 out of 10 for this one. Um, and now Kristen has gotten me very excited for this next movie that we're going to talk about, which came out just a year later. I think Lobster came out like late 2015, early 2016, but
Yeah.
was like released wide to qualify for the early 2017 Oscars.
Mm-hmm.
And then late 2017, A24 gave us The Killing of a Sacred Deer, which what Julie said about Ben Whishaw and The Lobster definitely applies here, because if you didn't know Barry Keoghan before, you know him now, because my God, like this guy would haunt your dreams after this movie. Basically, you have Colin Farrell again as a surgeon who befriends a teenager named Martin, who makes his way into his family's life and offers him an impossible choice. And now I'm going to lay a spoiler warning, because I do think you need to get into some plot details down the line when we talk about this one in order to like fully discuss it. Um, but yeah, from here on, I think there's some things in the general plot that happen after like the 30-40 minute mark that are very key to this movie being messed up. Let's just say that.
Oh,
So did any of you guys also watch this one in theaters, by the way?
Especially that ending. No, I wish I did. I actually got to watch this in my film class as like, I don't remember if this was like I forgot what, like it was like a auteur, you know, studying film directors, but this was a film that one of my professors was really excited to show, and I was really excited to see it because I didn't get to see it in theaters, but I knew all the hype of it. So I was like, perfect. And I had the professor who was like not picking the best movies to show in class, but this one was definitely one I was like, okay, this is perfect to show in a film class, given how dark it is and how it's like kind of daring and, you know, trigger warning to anything that happened. I don't know, because the class only had like 10 people, and some people just walked out when they wanted to, or just didn't talk about it because they were just like, you know, they thought it was an easy A. I mean, I talked about it because here we are today talking about this film, and I really liked it. And then I rewatched it for this, and it is so dark. I thought it's much more darker than The Lobster, and it shows how great the beginnings of Barry Keoghan's career, and just knowing he's just like this walking nightmare of a character actor, because what we've seen from this to his stuff where we saw that small clip of the Joker and now Saltburn, this man is just pure evil.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
You know?
I actually couldn't watch him in anything after I saw this. I like couldn't watch him in anything for a while because he really disturbed me so badly. I couldn't look at his face until probably Saltburn or Banshee. I literally couldn't watch him in anything. I was like, no, I can't look at him. I can't, like, because I just keep thinking about how much he haunted me from this movie. So yeah.
His lighter performance is in Eternals, let's face it.
Yeah, he's chill in Eternal. Like, honestly, him as the Joker is like pretty like kid friendly compared to him in this movie.
Yes.
I gotta see
yeah,
spaghetti again. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So people were like, "Oh, the spaghetti scene was the most disturbing." And it's like, I understand that, because he just let's get into him, because he like we could say with Saltburn also, but he like portrays this. He gives this portrayal that's something so distant from what we think of as human. That's like so boxed out of that, because he's so awkward and so creepy, and he kind of just says the most random things, and he can like also put on this facade at first when he's eating the spaghetti and just talking to Nicole Kidman or whatever, that he's just like a chill guy, or he knows what he's doing or whatever, or that he's like a sweet kid at first, like bonding with Colin Farrell, like when he gifts him the watch in the beginning, and then you understand why he feels so betrothed to this kid. So yeah, I saw this one in theaters. Me and my friend did a I think we did a double feature that day because this came out, I think, on the same day as Kenneth Branagh's Murder on the Orient Express,
Oh,
which much lighter movie.
yeah, much
Good thing
lighter.
we saw this one last because it stuck with you more. And then, yeah, there weren't a lot
Let's
of
face it, you did the
people
best for
in the
last.
theater. Yeah, we did save the best for last. And right from the opening shot, this movie hits the ground running. If y'all remember what the very opening shot of the movie is, you're just like, oh, okay, this is that kind of movie. And I think if you want to define any movie as just feeling like a nightmare, feeling like a worst case scenario unfolding in front of someone's eyes, I don't think there's many better movies to describe that as with The Killing of a Sacred Deer, at least in modern years.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, this is the one. This and Dogtooth are probably the two movies of his that I just don't like.
Okay, interesting.
Oh, this is the one you don't like. Okay.
This is the one I watched it. I was like, I had to. It's not like I couldn't finish it. It was definitely watchable movie, but it's the one movie like my sister will be like, "Should I put this on?" I go, "No." Like, you know what I mean? It's like one of the things you can't really recommend for people, you know, and you really have to go into it and thinking it as like allegory, obviously, not like real. And it's just I just couldn't connect to it, I guess, is the only thing I got out of it. Like great performances from everybody down to all the kids. You know, it wouldn't have worked as well. It does work because of Barry and because of Colin. Like it works because of the two of those guys. I love the Alicia Silverstone cameo in there, bringing me back to the 90s.
Yeah. Bill Camp also.
Yeah, so there's so much like to pull from it, but overall it's just not for me. But yeah, I want to hear why you guys like it.
One thing that I think I love about this film is how daring the ending is and how scarring it is, because I remember sitting in my film class and just going like this and just being like, what the heck is going on? Why is this happening? And then rewatching it again, I just sat there because I watched this film by myself. I couldn't show this film to my husband for some reason. I just couldn't. And I just was like, given how we saw Poor Things, I don't think he was like ready for killing a sacred deer.
No, I remember still my heart raced during that ending scene, and it's like, Jesus, do we want to talk about that ending scene for a bit? Because the whole premise is actually you find out Barry Keoghan is punishing Colin Farrell's character for having a few drinks before his father's heart surgery, which led to some unexplained complication, and his father died on the operating table. And so that's why Colin Farrell feels so obligated to take care of this, of Martin is his name, Barry Keoghan's character. And then he punishes him by saying, like, your family members are gonna slowly like lose body control and die if you don't kill one of them yourself as punishment. Which, even saying that out loud, messed up, bro. Messed up.
Oh, it's so messed up. I mean, given the fact, the scene where it really hits me is when Colin Farrell's character starts to put the duct tape around the characters for that scene, and I was just like, oh my god, this is really happening. This is really, really happening. And then when he puts the cloth or whatever on the top of his head, and he does the circle, and there everybody's like freaking out. It's just like, how daring. It's like, it gives me the vibes of like something like you would see in like a Michael Haneke film, I feel like. If anybody has watched
Funny
this,
Games or something.
Yeah,
I haven't
like something
seen it,
like
but
that.
I know like the premise.
Yeah, but it gives me like the vibes of that, where that ending could be like so daring. You could see it in like a Funny Games. So yeah, it's just like, I'll never forget my heart like really pounding for a scene like that, where it dares to do something so extreme, where it takes the audience to an unexpected route for me.
Yeah, I love it just because, well, it's so chilling and it's so like unhinged and uncompromising in how much it's trying to like you know, if you came in with a good mood, it's gonna like terrorize your mood. That's all I'll say. But I think this is definitely where a lot of the Yorgos Kubrick comparisons came in because of a lot of the wide shots, especially in the hospital scenes.
Yeah.
Which pretty crazy. And Raffi Cassidy is also just chilling in this movie. You know, if you like Ellie Goulding, she's gonna ruin Burn for you.
Yes. I couldn't listen to that song after that. I was just like, we're gonna skip this song for a little bit.
I forgot about that.
I want to say too, speaking of the wide shots, there's a really great poster for one of the films where it's just a complete wide shot of Colin Farrell with the bed for one of the posters. Actually, if you look on,
I'm looking at this now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really
it's like him in two hospital beds and like the black blinds of the hospital room.
It's a really good poster. It's solid enough, but it shows the great cinematography in that film. So
definitely, I think The Lobster prepared me for like the trigger warnings on this one, because even The Lobster, you could consider it like a comedy, or this part was actually kind of funny, or oh, look at that satire. This will just make you feel awful. That's all I'll say. But kind of like it's so effective at it, and it's so like dark, and it definitely, like you said, Kristin, it follows through with that premise so well, with like that ending that you're just never gonna forget. And again, Julie, I'm sure you weren't the only person who was like turned off by whether it was the plot or just the overall sadism of this movie. But me and my friend definitely loved it, and we're talking about it for so long after, like weeks after. We were like, oh yeah, if anything, you know, tops how crazy Killing of a Sacred Deer is. Like every time we went into an A24 movie or a horror movie.
Is it in your
which Hereditary was like a couple months after.
Is it in your top A24 movies? In your top tier?
Maybe top 10. I haven't looked at that list in a while.
Yeah.
But there's just been so many good ones. But definitely this was like, this and maybe like Good Time, Lady Bird were like the first couple of A24 movies I saw in a theater. And they just have such a different approach to like both horror movies and just like marketing and in general. So this is definitely one of the ones that like left such an impression on me for all the movies they would release after.
Definitely.
I think this one, more than The Lobster, has that like the way they do some dialogue. You can kind of tell in Dogtooth, even though it's like not English language, you can tell by the way they're speaking that it's very like robotic, and it almost feels the unnatural tone to it. You really have to kind of like suspend, like, you know, and almost translate for yourself what they're actually saying in a way. So it's like one of those things you have to kind of like really be into it to get to watch this movie. You have to really just take it as it is, just like the rest of the stuff. But I really think this one has that similarity, this and Dogtooth, where you're just like, why are they talking like this?
There's even I remember that party scene. One of the weirdest lines is they're just kind of small talk. Like, I forget the daughter's name, but one of their friends is like, oh, how's your daughter? And he's like, oh yeah, my daughter started menstruating last month. So that's what's been going on in my home life or some shit like that. And that's like, he starts the conversation like this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they have such weird conversations in this movie. But definitely Colin Farrell was born for that kind of thing. Like I think probably before the Banshees of Inisherin, this probably became my favorite performance of his, especially how sort of devastated and conflicted he is. Like there's kind of this long shot of just him crying in the backyard. And you almost, like it almost goes into pity, which I would totally get why it would for some people. But you also are sort of like, oh my God, how is he going to get out of this? Or how is he going to react to this next scenario?
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm with you on Dogtooth a little more. I feel like like the sadism didn't add up to as much as it did for me in the experience here, which I just saw today, Dogtooth.
Me too, for the first time today.
I gotta watch it.
Okay.
I gotta watch
that
it.
one's
So weird.
yeah.
I'm kind of bummed I haven't had time or the chance to watch Dogtooth because I was so excited to revisit, The Lobster and Killing a Sacred Deer, and of course the favorite. It just, with timing and Christmas, Dogtooth didn't make the cut, which I'm kind of bummed, but I can't wait to watch
Definitely
it.
not a Christmassy movie.
No,
Dogtooth is not a Christmas
I don't think
family
any
movie.
of his movies are Christmassy movies. Not the kind of films where you want to bring the family together and sit by the fire and enjoy a nice cup of cocoa. Unfortunately, no.
Even though you do have the scene where Raffi Cassidy is like rehearsing the Christmas Carol right before she falls on the ground. Like, also a very haunting scene in its own way. But yeah, any closing thoughts on this one?
No, but karaoke can give anybody nightmares.
Yeah. True.
For me, this one's a good 9 out of 10. Honestly, again, it left such an impression on me in how dark these kind of movies can get, and how like haunting and outrageous it was. And compared to The Lobster, like there's no medicine to it. There's no, entertainment to it. It's just like a thrill, but a really nightmarish one. And yeah, I loved it when I first saw it.
For me, I'm giving this I agree a score of more like between an 8.5, 9 out of 10. This is like in the realm of a psychological horror thriller, and I tend to gravitate towards more of those. So I'm picking this over The Lobster.
Yeah,
any day.
I'm at like a 6.5, where it's like a well-made movie. Not for me, not something I'm gonna watch again. Nothing I really would recommend to too many people, but I like the ambition, and this makes me more intrigued in Yorgos in general. It made me that way, so definitely.
Can't blame you for that. Or a lot of these movies can't blame you if there's one or two or a couple dozen turnoffs in it.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess that brings us into his most awarded movie so far. That might change, but The Favorite, which was nominated again for 10 Oscars, including Picture, Director, Actress, twice for Supporting Actress. And it's not based on a book, but it is inspired by the real life story of Queen Anne and her. And it takes some liberties, but as much as is documented as her relationships with Lady Sarah Churchill and then Abigail Masham. And then from there, it takes a lot more creative liberties with the story. I don't think this movie is necessarily occupied with being historically accurate.
Right.
But yeah, Olivia Colman famously won Best Actress and gave one of every Oscar lover's favorite speeches because she was so in shock that she won. And she claims that she can't remember that time that she won because she was so overwhelmed.
I don't think many people at the time were expecting Olivia Colman to win, because I'm trying to look back at the time who was nominated.
Glenn Close was supposed to win. Glenn Close.
Yeah, Glenn Close.
I still remember Glenn Close gives his face like, next time, I guess. It was like Olivia Colman.
Lady Gaga.
Next time.
I thought Lady Gaga was for sure going to win, because like Olivia Colman was like my second shot, because I was obsessed with A Star Is Born. But
that's a great one.
Melissa McCarthy, I was just shocked to see. But then, of course, the actress from Roma, I'm reading it now, was nominated.
Yeah.
But just the unexpectedness of Olivia Colman and how deserving she was also for that, I think made the film like worthwhile to even seek out.
Yes.
And probably one of the best winners that night, honestly.
Oh my God. When she won, I screamed so loud. I was so happy that she won. Star is Born is one of my top favorite movies of all time, but the way those three women in that movie, their dynamic, even though it wasn't right, Emma Stone should have been lead, right? And
of course,
Olivia and Rachel probably supporting, right? But the way they did it worked, because Olivia has that presence, like even when she wasn't on screen, you felt her internal struggles.
For real.
And
well, she's a queen.
She's so hilarious, but she's so like, it's so devastating at the same time. It just was this full circle performance. And when she won, everybody in her film was so happy. That was the sole win for that movie, where they thought it was going to win, like, maybe production design or like screenplay, but it did not. And when she won, and that speech,
Definitely should be Green Book for screenplay.
Yeah.
yo,
Which is astonishing to me.
So,
and I was like, okay.
when she got up there, I'm telling you, I replay that speech whenever I'm in a bad mood. I put Olivia Colman's Oscar speech on because it's just the funniest.
Oh.
It makes me laugh. It makes me cry. I love it so much. It's just everything to me. And it made her one of my favorite actresses ever. So I just love that was her. She propelled into Hollywood from that movie. And I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I totally agree. Now
A-lister.
She's everywhere. And I remember in our conversation, we talked about seeing her pop up in The Bear. And,
yes,
it's great to see her in more performances because of this film. It really got me to know her as an actress. Like, just seeing her and not really knowing her name, it just put the stamp, on the mark, to make herself like, yeah, she's the talent to watch,
Yeah, absolutely. And since then, it's only been 5 years. She's now also nominated for The Father and for The Lost Daughter, also for Golden Globes for Empire of Light, and for obviously The Crown. I haven't seen it yet, but it takes. I'm sure it takes skill to be able to inhabit multiple queens in your career. And her performance as Queen Anne is so good because, first of all, it's one of the leading, I guess, comedic. I think the three actresses each bring different things to the movie, both when it comes to arc and comedic skills. But Olivia Colman, she has all these great like yelling scenes, but also like a lot of like grief that sometimes dives into a little bit of pity, like from the way it's sort of framed, because she's just so sad and humiliated all the time. But and it's both played for laughs, but also like it brings you to like understand her erraticness, I guess. And she and Rachel Weisz start off with a relationship, and then eventually Emma Stone comes from being like a servant, like a cleaner, I think, to becoming super, basically stealing Rachel Weisz's life.
Yeah.
And I will say Rachel Weisz was one of my favorite supporting performances of that year. I wanted her to win so bad, but the fact that they were both nominated kind of like got in each other's way in a sense, because they were both so amazing, Emma and Rachel. And
she won something. She won BAFTA, I think.
Yeah, she won the BAFTA.
But they both lost to Regina King at the everything else, pretty much.
Right. Right. And which was fine, which I love Regina King, I can't be mad at that. But at the same time, it was just, there was so much to chew. And I loved the fact that in the movie, all the men are like in makeup and all their extravagance, and all the women were very just like cleaned down. Like they were just toned down, no makeup. It was like more, it was like kind of like role reversal in a sense of the time. And the queen being so in charge of everything, but, can be manipulated to a sense. And where does that manipulation, like, did Emma Stone get what she wanted at the end, even though she got what she wanted? Did she, and I just loved, it was like one of my favorite theater experiences that year, even though I took my mom, it's like one of those weird things. You're just like, okay, don't take your parents to a Yorgos movie, like, that I learned. But I loved it so much, and it's just very a singular movie that I think like we're never really gonna see again. It just has this singular voice. And the other thing I love about it is just the production design of that castle and the wallpaper and the hidden doorways and
Yes.
and the dancing, and also what's his name? I love him so much. Nicholas
Joe
Holt.
Alwyn?
Nicholas Holt.
Joel.
Nicholas Holt, sorry.
No,
Nicholas
I'm not
Holt
a
is
fan of
great. I
Joel.
love that costume he wears in that film. It's great.
Yeah, with the hairs.
The-
No, he's really funny in this, by the way.
Yes, I love
And
him.
Rachel Weisz and Joe Alwyn also have the great dancing scene, which is like the first 20 minutes.
So good. Dancing, so good.
But I remember when this was announced to be Yorgos' next movie, which was, I guess, right after Sacred Deer, because he had already started filming it by the time that movie came out. And it said, like, oh, it's about Queen Anne and her relationships with these people. And I was like, oh, is he just making a period movie for Searchlight? Is this going to still feel like a Yorgos movie? And then in July, they released like a 50-second teaser. And I was like, oh, never mind. Because they were teasing right away that it was still going to be this like outrageous comedy. And definitely, like you said, the cinematography, first of all, this is when he starts experimenting with fisheyes. And, even when there's just like random, conversations about royalty, at its core is this envy and this competition and even lust, whether it's for prestige and glamour or literally over the queen. And, there's like all these weird, like even the I forget the name for the sport, but like when they're shooting the birds, it's this great scene. You were talking about Rachel Weisz's performance and her sort of like trying to gain power over her. And, we'll talk about this in the next one too, but Emma Stone actually, I think she pulls off a lovely British accent, honestly.
She does. She's a talent. I love her. She's one of the best. And we'll talk about, I want to go off more about Emma Stone in the next film, but this is just the beginnings, I think, of what is a great relationship between her and Yorgos.
Yes.
I also wanted to mention this movie is written by Deborah Davis and Tony McNamara, who also wrote Poor Things. But have you guys seen the show The Great by any chance? Or heard of it?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So also created by Tony McNamara. And, I watched an episode. I've seen the first 2 seasons. And right away it gave me the favorite vibes. I mean, you have Nicholas Holt as, I think it's Tsar Nicholas, right?
Yeah.
And Elle Fanning as Catherine the Great. And suddenly once I watch The Favorite and The Great, I get like bored of like regular like royalty period movies. Because like why not have an outrageous horny like period movie with feminine energy with so I do recommend The Great. It definitely slowed down a little later, but it also has this sort of like daring energy, even though it's based on the life of a really old royal. So that definitely, and even I don't know if you guys have heard of or seen the show Dickinson with Haley Steinfeld. Also, sort of reminded me of this because it's like this incredibly like modern. I say this a lot, but like feminist energy in the 1800s because it's Emily Dickinson. So I feel like I don't know if The Favorite inspired that, but if we have a subgenre of like these like outrageously comedic period movies that's coming from The Favorite, I'm down for that.
Yeah, totally.
I think I could see that now in the first. I just started watching The Buccaneers on Apple, and that kind of has like a vibe to that as well. So,
Buccaneers. I don't think I've heard of that one.
It's like,
is that new?
Yeah, it just came out, and it has one of the actresses from like 13 Reasons Why, and a couple other like recognizable faces that have appeared in like young teen dramas or like up and coming actresses. So, got those similar vibes to me, just thinking about it in the way, if we're talking in those realms.
Absolutely. And I think, even if I would have, I'll say I give this movie probably 8.5, which is like risen a little bit from since I saw it, because I do think it stands the test of time, even a little better than The Lobster. Also, just because of how, I don't think we had seen anything like it, honestly, when it comes to the look and feel that, the aesthetic and the tone of the script come together to create. So yeah, really great movie.
I agree. Really great. I think this was like one of my favorites of the year. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, definitely. I gave it at the time, I think like a 10 out of 10, but I think still as time goes on, I maybe it goes to a 9.5, but I just love it for everything that it is and how the praise it got and everything what that was said here. I just loved. So but Poor Things we'll discuss next is just, but yeah, that's about the score I give it.
I'm the same as you. It's like 9.5, 10. Like, I slightly might like Poor Things more, but I'm not sure because I haven't seen The Favorite in a little while, so I want to rewatch it again. It's definitely a rewatchable movie.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's get right into it because I can tell now that we're itching with excitement to talk about Poor Things. So it's the newest movie from Yorgos, and like you said, he and Emma, I feel like he probably showed Emma Stone the script, and she was like, you know what, whatever you say, I'm good, because you can tell that she has a great time working with him and admires his vision so much. And here she plays Bella Baxter, who let's just say she's brought back from the dead. That's all I'll say without getting into too much detail, by her adoptive father, Dr. Godwin Baxter, and she starts to explore the world. It's just a very surface level explanation for this movie.
I will say she's a character who really breaks out of her shell.
Yes, indeed.
But I was so excited for this film once it was announced. I was really excited to see the return of Emma Stone and Yorgos together. And this was like the third time they've worked together now because they did a short film together. But I haven't seen it. I tried to find it in honor of this conversation and I haven't had access to it, which I'm kind of bummed because I would love to see it. But
hopefully Netflix brings it to us in a bit or something.
Yeah, it's but I read the book, so I absolutely loved the book. It pretty much touches on a lot of what the book is, but I loved the ending to this film, and I also loved the ending to the book. And that's been a major change. I recommend everybody read the book. I don't want to spoil what happens in the book.
Okay.
So.
Great. I'm kind of obsessed with this movie. I didn't think I was going to be as obsessed with it, but I am, because if you look at the trailer and then you see the movie, there's a lot more to the movie. So, on the surface level, I'm an Emma Stone fan. I can't say like, oh my God, don't kill me. I can't say I love La La Land. But at the same time, like, I'm obsessed with her in The Favorite, and I knew this would be more delicious in a sense, and that's kind of what it is to me. I feel like she's the lens for people that don't understand why polite society is the way it is. And she's the lens to rebellion and your own autonomy as a person. And she just represents so much in a character that, like everyone says she's so fearless and daring in this movie, but it's like, she represents so many people that are fearless and daring in different ways, that like never really saw a character on screen like this. So I think it was like amazing. I love Mark Ruffalo. I love Willem Dafoe. They're just hilarious in this movie. And even the people that have like little parts, Margaret Qualley, Christopher Abbott come in later, who I love. They were just in Sanctuary together earlier in the year. I'm obsessed with Sanctuary.
That's right. I haven't seen that yet.
I'm obsessed
with
that.
film.
I might watch it for your recommendation then.
Watch it. I watched it twice this year.
It's very good.
Amazing. It's in my
top.
Shit,
I have to watch Sanctuary.
It's in my top 20 of the year. But amazing. They do like little things, but I just love the journey of it, and I feel like I watched it and it got done out of the movie at midnight. And I wanted to go watch it again, and I rarely have that feeling when I see something. I want to watch it again, and people. And I will say, not everybody laughed, but I was freaking laughing my ass off.
I was.
Yeah. Me too.
Oh
it's the comedy is great
what
here.
What's wrong with that person? Like, this is hilarious. Yeah. Like, I loved it.
No, yeah, I think I went to again. I was probably in all of like November, December, I was probably at this point most excited to watch this one, because I think at this point I had seen and liked his other movies to the point where even if the critics had been like mid to great, I would have probably liked it even more. But then I heard all this amazing stuff coming out of the film festivals and it winning the Golden Lion at Venice. So I was gearing up for a masterpiece, and
Yeah.
dare I say, that is what we got.
Yeah.
Because I saw this at an early Dolby screening on December 5th. So the theater was pretty much full. I think my crowd liked it quite a bit. They were laughing, they clapped at the end. And I think as opposed to Killing of a Sacred Deer, this one, even if you wince a lot, I think there's a lot of enjoyment to be had because first of all, the sets are so out there. It is really colorful. It's not trying to be too like eerie or nightmarish, but it is dark in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And Emma Stone, let's talk about that performance now
She
because
steals it. She is great. Oh my gosh, she's more than great. She's brilliant in this film.
Yeah.
I've just
One of the top performances of the year, maybe the last couple years, definitely.
Mm-hmm. I love the way she brings this character Bella to life, and knowing she has the brain of a young child. I won't go into it because I want people to go see it. But it's quite disturbing what Willem Dafoe does, I must say. From reading it, I was like, okay, why? But whatever, you go along with it. And the way Emma Stone first starts off like as like a baby, kind of like learning the ways of the world, and then when she's like gets towards Mark Ruffalo and he's like, I'm gonna break you out of this house that you can't escape from, and then that's when she really learns what culture is, what art is, what science is, philosophy, poverty. She learns so much about the world, where she just transforms from this child to like this intellectual woman over the course of like almost 2.5 hours. It's amazing. Like, her character is so complex. It's amazing what she goes through in this film.
It definitely like raises the question of what would it be like if like us as like adult people came into the world without preconceived notions of it, without any upbringing. Like, it's not quite AI, but you could compare it to that.
Yeah.
Like you compare it to like Ex Machina or something. But definitely, I've heard people say it's such a courageous performance of her, and I love that because it never really breaks the illusion that she's acting as this, but she does such insane things, and every little expression makes you buy that within the world of this movie, that's who Bella is. And like you said, Willem Dafoe, I would say it's a great performance, and he's always like embracing the weirdness of his characters, but I kind of like that even though he's portrayed as this brilliant scientist, there's always a bit of pity to him. Like, you're kind of like, oh, this dude, like all he has are his experiments and Bella and all this, which is kind of the point of his character, and his arc later on. And Ruffalo, if you don't pity Defoe's character, you'll absolutely pity him because he is. But he's really funny in it, and I kind of
so
love.
Funny.
By the way, I do love that the whole cast is American, despite their all British accents and in the Victorian England. So I think the fact that Mark Ruffalo is American, it makes his like British accent. His performance almost feels theatrical because he's throwing himself into it. But I love that. Like, if you said to me now that he was like the front runner for Best Supporting Actor, I'd be like, okay, down.
Yeah, it makes sense why he would.
Definitely, I love it. I love when he cries in this movie. Did you ever laugh at someone crying so much in your life?
Yes. It's just so funny. And then how my favorite scene, I know it's showing the trailer, but he screams up to her when she's in that balcony. He goes, Bella! It's
he
so
almost starts
funny.
Acting like a baby too.
Yeah, it's great. It's so funny. I just remember cracking up in my seat because we're just reminding me of Stella. I remember if you watch all the.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's such a good comparison.
Yeah.
It just made me think of that.
Yeah.
So good.
And then just as a whole, I feel like in terms of directorial vision, he kind of took the best parts of what he's known for already and then just takes it to like an 11 because he does like he starts out with black and white, then we go into color. He does a bit of fisheye, a bit of like you're kind of like peeping into a hole in some scenes. There's different aspect ratios. He kind of goes crazy, but he does it at such a large scale where I kept thinking like, wow, good for Searchlight for giving him all this money to do whatever he wants. And it just pays off because first of all, the production design, it's supposed to look period, but it's sort of supposed to also look like a fantasy world without the actual like fantasy effects of it. It's just kind of like, hey, this is the 19. I don't know what it is, like what era it is, but it's like, hey, this is a period world that may or may not have existed. Just go with it. Even like the ship feels like such a big set, and the costumes are so intricate. Like Willem Dafoe's makeup. I just think in terms of directorial vision, he's so brilliant and visionary, and everything he goes for sort of pays off because even like the smaller details that are invested in end up impressing you.
Yeah, it's definitely like you would say steampunk style, but it's also like not old, not new, not modern, but not back in the day. So I think it's like it kind of gives you that freedom to kind of take it wherever you want it to be. It's not something specific. Just like you know, the thing I liked the most about the movie is that we're always Bella's questioning the world at all times, but like her logic always kind of makes sense, and the polite society they're always adjusting her to sometimes doesn't, and she kind of reveals that to us. Like she's that window where you're just like, oh, she's right. Everything she's saying is logical. She's just doing things that feel right to her. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't know that that's wrong or whatever. She's just doing what feels right and what she can do to get to the next thing she needs to do. And she's just escaping one prison after another, in a sense.
Yeah.
And I just loved that about it. And even at the end, you know, you're just like, yeah, you're on top of the world. Like, it was like what she didn't get in The Favorite. She got in Poor Things, you know, like with the character.
I would say it's much more of a happier ending than
it's his only movie I think that actually has a positive ending, because in all the other ones they've all messed each other up, or they've all had to sacrifice something to get out of something worse. Here you know, I won't spoil too much, but mild spoilers is that Bella does end up pretty content and happy, and she gets what she wants.
Yeah, she's very happy and successful, I guess, on her end from her character. So it's great, though. I just loved it. So recommending it to everybody, but it's not the movie for everybody.
Yes.
I must say, after watching it and walking out with like a full like theater that was like packed, I took my husband, and then we took a friend of ours, and the two of us liked it because we're both, you know, film nerds. My husband was just like, I love the beginning, but as soon as she stepped out into the world, he felt scarred of what he saw, especially
it was
so
like
much of the.
Oh, I was gonna say like that he was probably put off in the first 5 minutes when she's like starts stabbing the dead body or something.
Yeah, no,
because that's already pretty weird.
He's like, no, he was just like, the stuff that, you know, you see for like the old men that happens there. I won't say what happens, but the fondness that, you know, in that.
If anything, I would have shortened that a little bit. I could have done with like 5 less minutes of that.
Yeah. Yeah, he was just like,
I feel like Yorgos always does. I go, you're gross. You're gross. You know what I mean? Like, he's just gross. Yeah. He wants to be gross. He wants to make you disgusted, in a sense, a lot. And I kind of like admire that about him.
Yeah.
Like, you're just challenging. He's challenging people to see it. And you know, it's something that I think needs to happen. Yeah.
And that's society. Like, I was thinking, like, there's a lot of men that go around and look like that, you know?
Yep.
I mean, hey, if you're talking about, like, commentary on the patriarchy, low key, you could draw some parallels with Barbie because she also comes out into the world and like immediately tries to like they try to like put labels on her and so on. So hey, good double feature.
Yeah.
They're very
Oh
similar
yeah,
in
like
a lot of
is Poor Things Barbie? Question mark.
Poor Things Barbie, but for hornier people, I guess.
Yep. If you liked Barbie, here's Poor Things. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, really.
And that, it's funny because
Barbie but for steampunk.
Barbie was like my favorite movie of the year besides the Taylor Swift Eras Tour.
Yes, girl.
Barbie was my number one, but now Poor Things I have ahead of Barbie. I rewatched Barbie again on a second watch. It wasn't as funny on a second watch. I love it though. But Poor Things like takes it to the next step, and I just like, yeah, I wasn't expecting that at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, for real. So yeah, I just think he goes all out with this movie, both like with eye candy and with the I guess debauchery, with the insanity at hand. But absolutely, this movie benefits from also going into darker places, but then also going into the fun. Like anytime Emma Stone is like slapping or punching someone, it was just like gold entertainment. Or they have this crazy dance scene that I know the clips on YouTube because Searchlight has posted it, but watch that when you're watching the movie because it's so great.
The whole dance scene is wonderful. I mean, between this and then the Barbie dance scene, like best dance sequences in film this year, I think.
Yes.
For real. They should definitely do that at the Oscars where they like a couple that like you'd have like Margot Robbie, Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo.
Dance off.
Dance this year. Barry Keoghan, because he was in Saltburn. He danced.
Oh yeah, just imagine just Barry coming out.
So let's give our scores and our closing thoughts, and then I'd love to talk about Oscar chances. So I guess I'll start, which is Poor Things. I'm glad to report is sitting at a 10 out of 10 for me, and definitely just blends in like beautiful filmmaking and great entertainment. Not like for everyone entertainment. I wouldn't recommend it to my family necessarily because they would be like, what is this nonsense that you like? But to anyone who likes watching movies, and I would suggest you watch another Yorgos movie first, at least like The Favorite or something, if you don't have a good stomach for the other two. But absolutely a fantastic movie that I'll always look back at as one of this year's golden films.
I agree. A solid 10 out of 10 for me. Absolutely one of my favorites. Made it in my top 5 of the year. I am so happy how this film turned out after reading the book and just seeing how daring the book was and how daring the film is and how rich and complex the film was. I just love it. Love it.
Me too. 10 out of 10. Also in my top 5.
All around, yeah.
It's sitting at number 5 right now. I could see it again. It could go up, It just represents so much that we don't normally see. And like you said, we can't recommend it to everybody, but I'll recommend it to every person who loves movies, and, because not everybody loves all movies. They just go see whatever. But
yeah, exactly.
It was me and my friends, when we got out of there, we saw it together. She told me it was her favorite movie of the whole year. So it wasn't just me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely a film nerds film. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know who my audience was when I saw. Like, I didn't ask them, hey, are you guys film nerds? But they all clapped at the end.
Yeah.
And I heard like the other people talking about it, but I think they probably at least gear themselves up. Like, if you just go in thinking, oh, new Emma Stone movie, it's a comedy, like you're gonna be disgusted. But absolutely. So for a while now, it seems like this one's been one of the leading films in the Oscar race, and all I'll say is if Oscar morning comes and this has the most number of nominations or is tied with Oppenheimer or something, I would not be surprised, because it's not only do I think it's going to get in for Best Picture and Director, but I think it'll get nominated for a ton of the categories that are like below the line.
Mm-hmm. No, I 100% agree with all that. I think the biggest push it's having right now is picture and for Emma Stone going for it. And I won't be mad to see how many nominations it gets because it's well deserved. And I'm happy that we had, I know this film was supposed to come out in September, but we had the strike. So I'm happy with it got pushed because now everybody can see how truly award worthy the film is and why it was like deserved a Christmas release, you know?
Yeah,
For real.
definitely. And I do think the best chance this film has to win, maybe Emma Stone. I think it's a 50-50 with that one right now, but I think adapted screenplay is probably its strongest chance to win. Something I had it at best picture competitive. That really depends. There's so many different movies this year that we're considering that it's like really hard to say what they're gonna go for. But I definitely think, like, obviously Christopher Nolan's like running away with director, but I feel like Yorgos is right there. If
Yeah,
anybody
he's
could
I
pretty
take
think
it.
tied.
I don't see anyone winning this year for directing besides Nolan or Yorgos
Exactly.
Lanthimos. And they have sort of similar paths because they both haven't won yet, but this sort of, for audiences, especially critics and the awards voters, both Oppenheimer and Poor Things were like the creative culmination of their directing skills,
Other than seeing
respectively.
like, I think like we'll see like Nolan and Yargos nominated. I think we're just gonna also see um what's her face, Greta Gerwig nominated,
Yes.
and Martin Scorsese nominated, honestly, because uh those two, like, I just have a fear those one of those two could come sneaking in as best director, but as a
I
win.
mean,
But
Scorsese, possibly, even though they do like to lean towards some of the ones that haven't won before,
one yet,
especially when it's like two beloved ones like this.
yeah,
Gerwig, look, I really liked Barbie,
me too.
not as much as these other films we're talking about.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe that's why I'm leaning towards not Greta Gerwig winning necessarily, but we haven't gotten to that point yet. But it's a little early. In terms of screenplay, I think it's between that and American Fiction because they
Mm-hmm.
do sometimes lean towards social commentary where it's kind of obvious, like with Black Klansmen or women
Yeah,
talking in the category. But absolutely, I could see Emma Stone taking away Oscar number two. Like I wouldn't be
which I
shocked
would
just
love.
because look, she's 35, but she's Emma Stone, and it's not impossible to win two Oscars. If anyone wins two Oscars at that age for a leading performance, it could be her. And like this could arguably even be her best performance over La La Land or
Oh, I
Birdman
think
or The
it's her
Favorite.
best
It's
performance.
definitely.
No doubt her best performance for
Yeah,
me.
I
I
agree.
think if she didn't
Mm-hmm.
win already, she would 75% chance getting this. I think
Yeah,
for me, I still have Lily Gladstone because the
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
soul the soul of Lily Gladstone through her eyes just got me more. But I loved this performance, no doubt. It's really a
Mm-hmm.
toss up. I'd be
Agreed.
happy either way, right? So
yeah, I would be overjoyed if either one because
Yeah,
it's like
agreed.
if Lily Gladstone won, I'd be like, wow, she was phenomenal. Plus, Emma Stone already has an Oscar at home. If Emma Stone won, I would be like, wow, awesome. Welcome to the two timers club.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be happy either way. Right now, look, it's a bit early, but for me, it does seem kind of 50-50
yeah, I think so.
from where I'm sitting. And Mark Ruffalo, I do think,
Yeah.
does sort of have a chance at the goal because as opposed to supporting actress where there is sort of one that everyone's saying could win, supporting actor I wouldn't say that's as clear right now. You have
Mm-hmm.
Robert Downey Jr., you have Charles Melton,
Yes. So four are
Ryan
very
Gosling's
strong.
likely getting
Ryan
nominated.
Gosling.
Those
There's so
four
many
guys
good
are
supporting
strong.
acts.
Yeah.
So many. I think the
Yeah.
supporting actor male is much more stronger this year than it is for females, which is kind of sad for me to say because the male performances just really knocked it out of the park this year, and it's so hard to say who could win because every single performance, like what you just said, Charles Milton, Ryan Gosling, Mark Ruffalo, even the scenes with Willem Dafoe are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So
I would nominate Defoe. We could see De Niro
I love
for
De
Flower
Niro.
Moon, Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction. It's
Yeah.
What'd you
there's
say,
so
Faye?
many
So
good
you
ones.
could take
It's
like
so
8
good.
performances and fit them into that category, and I would be like, I don't want to cut
Yeah, for
anybody.
real.
It's such a strong category this year, which it hasn't been in a while this strong. Normally, the best actress is the category we're talking about, but I feel like this year, like that supporting actor category, like De Niro gave one of his best performances in like 2 decades for me, and I feel like Charles Melton's probably my favorite if I could pick one.
Ooh.
But Ryan and Mark, they're like comedic, so I feel like that splits it in a sense. Like they're both so
And that's
comedic.
But I do think Poor Things is like a comedy in a bit of a different way.
yeah.
Because I think Ryan Gosling, as much as I love him in that movie, his is a little more like purely comic. Ruffalo is doing also a bit of, I don't want to say transformative because that's a bit dramatic, but he is doing a little more of like he's like playing like a period character. I mean, that's why I would give him the edge over someone like Ryan Gosling. But honestly,
yeah, I think he's delicious. He's
I-
deliciously something.
Deliciously something.
Honestly, for me, I could split it like
movie. Like, you know what I mean? He's like the one you wanted to look at, you know?
Yes.
Honestly, right now it could be like 33, 33, 33.
Yeah.
Mark Ruffalo, Robert Downey Jr., Charles Melton, but even Ryan Gosling. I don't know if win, but like it's Ryan Gosling, and they love him so much.
And knowing
you
Ryan
never know.
hasn't won yet, and given the times he
hasn't.
has been nominated with his career, I wouldn't be surprised even if he just overshadows Mark Ruffalo and just they're like, all right, this is your time. Let's give you your flowers now, Ryan.
It really
You know?
depends
I don't know.
on if they re-release Oppenheimer and Barbie and bring it more of a recency bias back into it. I think the recency bias has a big way on a lot of these performances. I kind of forget about Robert Downey Jr., to be honest with you guys. Like, he's great in that movie, but if you think about him next to the other people, it's not as loud, right? In a sense.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
I think he has that good like yelling scene in the room with Alden Ehrenreich. Though.
Yes,
but
yes.
now, if you told me who's winning, I would honestly low-key say Ruffalo, but I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced at all. As opposed to like Divine Joy Randolph and Holdovers, which I'm confident in.
Me too.
I'm not confident for supporting actor yet.
Yeah, only time will tell, I think, between what we see with the Golden Globe and SAG. Because there's a lot of interesting comparisons on like who won the Golden Globe and who won the SAG, and then like that translated who won the Oscar. Because I feel like those are more battling out. Like Golden Globe kind of pairs well with critics, I think, better, the critics winners. But I think those two, whoever wins,
because that's also press versus you have the Actors Guild voting both for the Oscars and the SAG. And I don't even know who's voting for the Golden Globes this year because I just learned the HFPA disbanded. But they're always like journalists, just as the Critics' Choice are, which is why we could have seen like Angela Bassett win those two for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and then Jamie Lee Curtis took the SAG and then the Oscars. So that's a good explanation for the split.
Yeah.
So oh no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna round it out and say I'm excited for Yorgos' next project. He's working with Emma Stone again. And
yeah, I think it's done filming too.
Yeah, and it's got Joel Alwyn and Jesse Plemons, Hunter Schafer, and Willem Dafoe again. So I'm very, very excited.
Rabbit, I think
it's great. I'm excited. So give me more of this duo. I'm here for it.
I think it's Chris Rabbit. I'm not even sure. But yeah, so I think to close the episode, I think we should just rank the films that we've seen from Yorgos. So Julie, why don't you start us off?
Okay, at the bottom, I'm gonna put Dogtooth. It's really just something I just couldn't, like, I was just watching it, like, I get it, why he did certain things with it, and it's just not for me. Then I'd put Killing of the Sacred Deer right above that. Right in the middle, I'd have The Lobster, then The Favorite, then Poor Things. Right at this moment, they're kind of neck and neck, but I'm gonna give Poor Things the edge because of the overall how much I loved it versus like I enjoyed it the most, right? So I'd say that's the best for me.
For me, I want to be more exposed to Yorgos' previous work. So until then, right now, my ranking goes The Lobster, Killing of a Sacred Deer, The Favorite, and then The Poor Things. Basically, just his English adaptation, whatever order you want to call it.
So I would go, because I've seen 5 as of today. So number 5, Dogtooth. I felt the same way. I felt like I was wincing a lot, but then it just didn't come together enough at the end for me to be like, okay, that was all earned. Even though the sadism in that movie was really interesting to examine, it just didn't come together as much in the end. Number 4, I'd say The Lobster, but everything onwards is great. Number 3, The Favorite. Number 2, Killing of a Sacred Deer. And number 1, Poor Things. With pride, I say that.
Yeah.
I think we all said that with pride.
Yeah.
Just great.
Yes.
Greatness all around.
Okay. So we will all feel like poor things now because this episode is coming to a close. That was terrible, sorry. But
that's okay.
We
saw where you're going with that.
After picking a favorite, no, I'm gonna stop. So that brings us to a close. I'm really glad that we managed to spotlight this guy. As unique as he is, he's managed to be embraced by so many film lovers and awards guilds and so on. And I couldn't be happier that his films are becoming like the talk of the town and Filmstagram and with awards nominations and so on. So that brings us to a close. Let's start with you, Kristin. Where can everyone find you online and on social media?
The good, wonderful people can find me on Instagram at Miss Filmingo. I co-host the MK Productions podcast with my best friend Mac. So shout out to Mac. We have a lot of great stuff coming out in the new year for us, and I have lots of great stuff working in the pipes. So if anybody wants to follow me on there and see all my socials, go follow me on there. I'm on TikTok. I do all sorts of fun things that I try to do. But yeah, thank you for having me. It was so great talking about Yorgos and Poor Things. It was a treat to talk about this today, and hope to come back, and we'll have you on Gael in the future on my show.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You guys can find me on Instagram. I'm at Jusreel Reviews. It's JUSREEL Reviews. And I'm on there every now and then, really doing this a little bit more. So thanks.
Sounds good. So check out our awesome guests as well as their own reviews, Kristin's podcast, our past episodes together, and check out Poor Things as soon as you can. Bring your friends. Maybe trigger warning, but that's all.
Trigger warning if you bring your parents. Don't see it with your parents.
I'm keeping this away from my family at least, but everyone else, I'm strongly suggesting this too. And that wraps up another great episode of the Feature Fanatics. I've been Gal, and you can check us out as well on social media with Feature Fanatics Pod on Instagram. And till next time, see you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.